Hello, lovers of the world. This is Senta speaking. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to another episode of Musical Musings. This is a series that features some casual discussion about a particular song, artist, or musical topic. And it's basically the dumping ground for my opinions that didn't really fit into a larger, more cohesive video, but were still opinions that I wanted to share nonetheless. Today, we are going to be talking about Taemin's last three solo comebacks, Criminal, Idea, and Advice. I ran a poll on Twitter to see what video you guys wanted to see, and this option won. So thank you very much for helping me decide. I actually think this was the better choice because, one, it's pretty topical. I mean, Advice just came out, so, it's good timing. And two, this is a lot more straightforward to make and would take less time compared to the other video topics I had put up for decisions. So yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I have a pretty rough script of what I wanted to talk about, of which I will be referring to every now and then. But otherwise, my words will be largely organic. Still, I'm excited to talk about this because I didn't actually plan on making a video about the Taemin comeback. But I watched it, and after talking to some people who have inspired me, I guess some opinions just came out, and I feel like I wanted to share them with you guys. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, before we get into the intended songs, I feel like we need some context. So I went down memory lane and looked through Taemin's previous solos. Press Your Number and Drip Drop came out in the same year that I got into K-pop. So there's definitely that nostalgia factor in there for me. But those two songs, alongside later releases like Want and Move, set up the foundations of what I considered to be Taemin's main repertoire. Sexy, sensual, subtle, and heavily performance-based because Taemin is such a dance god. And also largely R&B influenced. There's also a level or this element of androgyny and gender-bending presentation that Taemin plays with, such as the more quote-unquote feminine dance moves and the slender body lines that most people would typically associate with female bodies. Taemin is such a trendsetter in the sense that I can see even the current K-pop idols who have just recently debuted in the past few years kind of not necessarily emulating, but you can tell they've definitely taken inspiration from him. I believed that kind of sensual, sexy, R&B concept really worked well for Taemin. Enough so that he's made a name for himself for being able to pull off such incredible concepts. His vocal talent pushes his songs forward, and his stage presence and charisma make his live performances a feast for the eyes. So that is the image of Taemin in my head, and that image influences my responses to his three latest Korean releases, Criminal and Idea from 2020 and Advice from 2021, just last week. I only got into Taemin and SHINEE as a whole due to the people I spend time with. So I do owe a lot of my exposure to Taemin to my friends. Shout out to my ride or dies, my homies, you the real ones. None of you are watching this, but it's okay. Okay, let's actually talk about the three songs now. First up, Criminal. If you were a subscriber to my YouTube channel, then you might remember my video about Taemin's 2020 album, Never Gonna Dance Again, Act 1, and you'll remember my thoughts about Criminal. It has been a year since that video was released, so my tastes have changed slightly, but that album remains to be an incredible musical project, and Criminal is still one of the best K-pop releases of that year. I loved Criminal for being both a new sound on Taemin, while still adhering to that sexy, sensual, and performance-paced persona he has spent years building. The song isn't entirely R&B like his previous songs might have been. because the chorus has these beautiful glittery synths that punch through this thick, dense haze of melodrama that the initial verse establishes. My initial reaction was kind of like, oh, retro-y kind of. I mean, they were kind of hopping off of the retro wave that's been sweeping the music industry for the past, I would argue, 4 years. But I thought it was just a really interesting and subtle incorporation of a very prominent and trendy musical style. As for the concept of Criminal itself, it's really interesting because his past songs have been about him being the object of desire, him being the one in control, being the person that people want. But Criminal is about him being the vulnerable one this time, him being swept away by somebody else, swept away by a force that is stronger than him, and having to relinquish control to that force, whether it's his toxic love or his baseline instincts. So yes, there are elements of familiarity and foreignness in the song that make it surely one of Taemin's most intoxicating songs. Now, with how positively I've reacted to this comeback, you can imagine my disappointment when Idea came out, and Idea was basically nothing like what Criminal was, which is in itself a both good and bad thing. Good in that, Taemin's not just rehashing the same thing over and over again. But I don't know, it's not really a sound that I would associate with Taemin, so I was definitely let down. However, listening to it now, Idea, I feel like it has grown on me since then. I wouldn't go out of my way to listen to it for sure, and it still remains at the bottom of this Taemin title track tier list, but I am more inclined to it. I feel like I could see the merits of it now. The album it came from, Never Gonna Dance Again Act 2, is also really, really good. So it's such a shame that I never got around to making a full-on review for it the way that I did for Act 1. As for the title track, I just didn't like it. I disliked how it switched from like this pulled back R&B and very classically Taemin sound to this very like overpowering drop of heavy bass and anxiety-inducing strings. I didn't like it. However, it did do a great job of segueing into the last song, Advice. So instead of strings, it's piano now. So there is that like classical aspect that Idea and Advice both share. I wouldn't know what to call Idea in terms of genre, but Advice is definitely firmly rooted in the trap hip-hop genre. That being said, it's got this basic ass snare drum beat and just like not a lot going on for it. Like, that was my initial reaction. That doesn't really have a lot going on other than the occasional visit from that piano introduced at the beginning. But the more I listen to it, the more I like how the piano and the trap influences are juxtaposed. The piano's elegance contrasts well with the abrasiveness of the trap beat, which makes them both stronger. Black Swan by BTS have done something similar. I think that Advice was a better execution in terms of musicality. I'm not sure what it is about Black Swan that doesn't quite hit the same way that Advice does. They're both about pretty deep topics, with Black Swan being about losing your passion for your art, and Advice being essentially a bug fuck you to the haters, which in itself is a pretty common trope in the hip-hop trap genre. But here's the section where I start comparing both of them in more depth. First, the classical and dramatic elements in Advice actually carries on throughout the song, while the classical music aspect in Black Swan comes and goes. Very flimsy. It feels a lot more flimsy when I put them together side by side. So Black Swan comes across as more blatantly trap, and if you know me, I don't really like trap music to begin with. I do like the lyrics of Black Swan though. It's just like, it's hard to, because I don't understand Korean, it's just like all I have is this basic trap beat and they're rapping, which I don't really even understand, so the experience isn't really that great. So to me, it feels like Black Swan is more one note compared to Advice, and I think Black Swan relies too much on their multiple rappers to provide some kind of variation. Like you've got J-Hope, Suga, and RM kind of providing different tones and different rapping styles, right? Whereas Advice you at least utilizes Taemin's vocal range to offer a bit more. I don't know, I just feel like Black Swan could have done more, at least. That being said, Taemin's vocal talent just has so much more capacity and range for more melodrama that it felt like such a shame and a waste that to just make him rap in Advice. I think that explains why in the past he's just been given more R&B songs, because that's the genre that he does well in. That's the genre that incentivizes and is rewarded when he's got the vocal chops to carry through. And it also explains why it was so jarring or different when he just raps and is given a song that doesn't quite challenge him as his previous songs usually do. It's at least, I mean, it's jarring or different to longtime listeners. That being said, I thought it was great that they gave him a song that was so different from his other work that even the longtime listeners are surprised. I mean, Taemin has been in the music industry for God knows how long, so I think it's amazing that he can still kind of pull off something. He can still do something that surprises people even after so many years. That's just talentry. It feels like he's been given as many chances to try out different images and concepts as much as possible before he actually has to head off into the military. And yeah, it's a great song. I did really like it. Like initially I was against it because I didn't really feel like it was a Taemin song. But the more I listen to it, the more glad that he actually has the chance to try such a sound for himself. And because he's Taemin, he just like pulls it off so well. In conclusion, I think there is an overarching narrative that ties Criminal, Idea, and Advice together, but I am not the person for that. I just wanted to express my thoughts, the thoughts that has been fermenting in my brain since Advice came out. I don't really want to explore this even further, but Taemin is such a behemoth of a man. Like, there's so much that you can talk about him in terms of like gender, masculinity, probably other topics like religion. I don't know. The more I thought about it, the more tempting it was to like make this bigger. But I don't know. I feel like I don't really have much more to offer because I'm not like a longtime SHINEE fan, or I'm not a big Taemin fan. So I just wanted to, I guess, express my amazement, my appreciation for the music that Taemin puts out, especially since he is going away for so long. Hopefully when he comes back, we will be gifted more interesting, unique concepts that only Taemin can pull off. That's all I have to say. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please press like and subscribe if you want to hear more about my thoughts and opinions. All my social media links are in the description, like Twitter and Instagram, alongside my Patreon and Coffee page if you guys loved my work enough to donate money. Thank you so much. And yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about Taemin. Like, did you like Advice? Did you prefer other songs? Have you listened to the full album? I haven't yet. I'm probably gonna listen to it next month. Are you a big Taemin stan or SHINEE stan? Are you gonna miss him? I'd love to know. I really will. But yeah, other than that, see you guys next week, and thank you so much for listening.